The main event for this fight night is Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer. And this is a fight that I really hope goes long. I want to see Joe Pyfer answer questions of what happens in a competitive fight at the UFC level in rounds 2 and 3, let alone rounds 4 and 5. But hopefully he answers some of these questions. I want to see Jack have some moments against Joe, and I want to see what Joe is made of, to be honest. Because generally speaking, he steamrolled his competition. Got a finish in round 2 over Abdul Razak Al Hassan, a submission finish, no less. But still, he hasn't been tested in a way that he's going to be tested by the time he reaches what he considers to be his destination, which is the world champion and the Hall of Famer and all that. And look, I am no better than anybody else. When somebody starts talking about his greatness and, his plans, the belt in 2 years, the main event in 1 year, and blah, 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 and the big plans, you can't help but be encouraged and inspired by that, especially as a gambler. You can't help it because you're thinking, this guy knows something I don't know, meaning he's kicked a lot of UFC ass in the training room. And it is uh, encouraging. But at the same time, I know fighting well enough to know that shit's going to go wrong. And Jack Hermansson's a guy that could take advantage of many opportunities. Joe Pyfer's been defeated once legitimately as a pro to Jonathan Patti, this Hawaiian brawler. And it was with a guillotine choke in round 2, where Joe Pyfer was gassed, shooting desperate takedowns, and was just, he didn't have much fight in him in round 2 there, and he shot his way into a guillotine and was tapping with his ass against the cage. That's Jack Hermansson's best move, the guillotine choke. It's one of the overall best submissions in the whole middleweight division. Jack Hermansson's guillotine choke. Maybe Andre Muniz's armbar is the only thing better. But I look and say the one way he's been defeated is by guillotine, and if something goes wrong and you have that guillotine waiting for you, that's it. So Jack definitely has a path to victory there. Also, Jack has really good top game grappling. The guy is a monster on top. The thing is, I don't think he's got the wrestling and physicality to get Joe Pyfer there while they're fresh. Jack Hermansson would have to beat Joe Pyfer up and take some of the life out of him on the feet, I would think. And on the feet, Jack is a very good striker. He's very comfortable. I don't think he's going to be able to play the matador quite like he did against Chris Curtis, but he definitely will have more. I have more faith in his volume, and I have more faith in his output. Strike, it's the same fucking thing. But over the course of 5 rounds, especially, I think he could outstrike Joe Pyfer. If you told me these guys went to a decision and it was fought mostly on the feet, even for 25 minutes, I would say Jack Hermansson was leading that dance. Joe Pyfer's got power on his side, but he's got that slow, plodding pressure where Jack is the more active fighter. So I think Jack would have to have a lot of success off his back foot, not walking into the power of Joe Pyfer, and of course, beating Joe Pyfer up, especially to the body, to take some of the wind out of his sails. But my pick is still Joe Pyfer. I think Joe Pyfer is going to have that power. Jack, on the flip side of all of that striking offense I just talked about, he's been vulnerable. Even though it's been to very high level fighters, he's been TKO'd multiple times. Jared Cannonier, Thiago Santos, Roman Dolidze beat him with pure grappling, but it was still a TKO on the ground, for whatever that's worth. Even on the regional scene, he's been rocked. This guy, Enoch or something, had him rocked and took his back in the middle of the fight. He's just a more fragile fighter, even though, again, he's had a much longer resume. So it's all a guessing game, and my guess is Joe Pyfer gets to him and eventually goes through him with that power. And Joe Pyfer is not lost at all on the ground, by the way. Joe Pyfer is a very competent grappler and a competent wrestler. It's just I have doubt about his overall MMA game and, of course, his cardio. I think I've got to see him pass some tests before I'm more sure in him. I'm picking him to win, but I'm not betting on him. And Jack Hermansson, I threw a sprinkle on his money line at plus 200, but really this is something where I'll wait for the prop bets and start hitting those submissions in the middle of the fight. because I think there's value on Jack Hermansson. Joe Pyfer, of course, I'll wait to see his TKO prop because I do think that is his uh, the majority of his paths to victory lie through TKO. TKO is concussion on the feet and also ground and pound on the ground. I think if Joe Pyfer was on top of Jack Hermansson, he'd be mauling him instead of submitting him. So I will wait to see what that prop looks like. But right now, with just the money line staring at me, the value's on Jack Hermansson. But again, not a lot of faith even in veteran Jack because the pick is Pyfer via TKO. All right, the co-main event for this card is Andre Fili stepping up on short notice to fight Dan Ige. And let me say, I think Andre Fili's going to be in shape. I know he was compensated, I'm sure, for taking this fight on short notice and making a quick turnaround after a round one knockout a few weeks ago. But despite all that, I expect him to be in shape because he's not taking this fight out of desperation like a Fernie Garcia or an Ihor Potieria. Not that I know the circumstances for either one of those negotiations, but I know Andre Fili had a comfortable standing inside the octagon, the UFC. So here I expect him to be in good shape and ready to go 15 minutes. And I honestly expect this one to go 15 minutes, regardless of who wins. I would be very surprised if either guy got a finish. And the one trait that I'm most certain of between the two fighters is Dan Ige's durability. I would be very surprised if Ige got finished here by Andre Fili. Ige, he's been in there with grappling beast, wrestling beast, and striking beast at the top of the food chain inside the MMA world. And he's always looked healthy and strong, very durable. And I don't think Andre Fili is going to be able to take it to him in a way that like Movsar Evloev did anyway. But I am picking Andre Fili to win. Even if I wasn't picking him to win, I'd feel comfortable hedging on my Dan Ige bets with Andre Fili winning by decision, but I'm picking Fili to win anyway. I was picking him to win when they were even odds a few days ago, and now at plus 145, yeah, I'm still picking him to win. I think Andre Fili is going to be given a competitive fight, mostly on the feet, and I think Dan Ige, despite being more powerful as far as overhand punches go, let's say. Not that he's Mr. Overhand. I expect Dan Ige to be more accurate and more measured and fundamentally sound. But I think Andre Fili is going to be in his face and he's going to win with activity and pressure and volume. I think Andre Fili is going to be in his face. And I expect this one to be close. I don't think either guy's going to dominate. But I'm going with Andre Fili. Gun to my head, I'd pick him to win by decision. As far as my bets go, Andre Fili, now his money line's a little enticing at plus 145, but still, I am very sure if he does win, it's by decision. So if you're going to bet on him, you're almost always better off betting on the prop. For Dan Ige, by the way, I'd bet on the decision prop if you're going to bet on him as well. But the one line I'm waiting for is the point spread. Andre Fili, as an underdog, will be given a point spread of 3.5 points, meaning if he on DraftKings, this is, by the way. If Andre Fili wins the fight in any way or wins at least one round, then he wins the bet. I win the bet. And I will be betting on that. I can't say what the odds will be. I expect it to be close to even money or somewhere thereabout. But I think Andre Fili is going to be in a competitive fight, win or lose. Even if he lost, I would be banking on him winning a round. And if he wins, of course, I still think it'll be close. But I'm predicting his activity gets it done. So Andre Fili is the pick. Andre Fili, the point spread will be the bet. And for either guy, again, their path to victory lies through decision. Decision. Or fucking triangle choke. What do I know? All right, Robert Bryzcek versus Ihor Potieria. Ihor Potieria is stepping up on very short notice here, replacing Albert Duraev. And Ihor is also cutting down to middleweight for this fight. So, to give you my pick here at the top, I'm going with Robert Bryzcek via knockout. I think Robert Bryzcek is very dangerous, especially with his hands. And Ihor Potieria is a guy that I've had a lot of doubts about him as a light heavyweight. And now I feel like those doubts are going to be exacerbated as a middleweight. mainly his durability and his cardio, which have given him some issues. But I'm also aware that this has been in the cards for some time. Nobody cuts 20 pounds on a whim. I'm pretty sure this was the plan for a while now. And of course, him having accepted this fight, I'm sure he's ready to make the cut. But now he's got to put it all into motion and actually do it over the course of the next few days. And again, I've had doubts in him, and I'm betting against his health here. But Robert Bryzcek is a guy who I just spent all week watching footage. He's a newcomer, and he's a guy that I don't have a lot of faith in, to be honest. I think he's a limited fighter. So even though my pick is him winning by knockout, if you want me to convey more information, then just let me do that here for you. But yeah, he's a vulnerable guy. He's got a record of 17-5, all 5 losses I've seen. The 3 losses, he was outstruck. He was outstruck and really neutralized by having a striking battle at the kicking level. He was able to be outkicked by this Polish guy in his most recent decision loss. And that guy's a limited fighter who, if Robert Bryzcek had an extra ounce of versatility, he could have been submitting the guy. But it just wasn't there for him, and he just looked like a limited boxer. Same thing against Leandro Silva, former UFC fighter. But that wasn't all about leg kicks. That was body kicks and all kinds of kicks. And Leandro definitely was more dangerous there, was scaring him with danger and even hurt him in round 2. And almost got him out of there, where he was saved by the bell. And he also lost by decision to Sadabusi, who it wasn't so much about the kicks, but Sadabusi is an excellent fighter and a giraffe. So his punches are kicks. And pretty much Robert Bryzcek was forced to shoot shitty takedowns in that fight to no avail. And how do you like my vocabulary? Huh? And he lost the decision pretty easily to Sadabusi. He was submitted once to this guy who also submitted Makhmud Muradov, who we almost saw fight last week. He got heel hooked inside of round 1 after maybe getting knocked down. I don't think so, but there was something going on, and he ended up getting his leg laced and Next fight is Brad Tavares versus Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. This is a fight between 2 guys who each of them has a durability issue, I should say. Definitely a chin issue for each fighter. And even though Brad Tavares has been knocked out more times than RoboCop, I have less faith in RoboCop's chin. I think he's got some serious durability issues. He was knocked out cold against Bruno Lopez, I think, on the regional scene, who's a very good fighter himself, and also Jordan Williams, who came and went in the UFC, but is still a very dangerous striker. Despite the danger, being knocked out cold like that 3 times, I don't have faith in Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez's chin. I think if he gets defeated and if he loses another 5 fights, at least 3 of them are going to be by knockout. For Brad Tavares, it's not like he's got the weakest chin. I still consider him pretty healthy, but here in this fight, because RoboCop is maybe the most dangerous striker in the division, and I'm aware he's more of a grappler and blah, 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 and whatever, but he hits like fucking Mike Tyson. So, because he's fighting the most dangerous guy in the division, knockout is certainly on the table. I think if either guy was to lose this fight, it'd be by knockout. So, knockout prop is how I'll play it. Gun to my head, I'll go with Gregory RoboCop. I think he hits that fucking hard, and he's much bigger. I think Brad Tavares tries to play the matador and chop his legs apart. He's going to be met with some firepower that was not there in the Chris Weidman fight. And I think it's going to catch him. Also on the ground, Gregory Rodriguez is a very good grappler who might have forgotten how to grapple at this point. But even if, look, nobody submitted Brad Tavares, even if that's not an option for Gregory here, he's still got great control and concussive power from any position. Go ask Dennis Thielulin or whatever. But in this fight here, I'm picking him to win. I'll be betting on knockout for probably both fighters when the props open, but certainly Brad Tavares by knockout is the one thing I'm really looking to bet on. I think Brad Tavares definitely has below average power, but he's got above average striking, and he's going to be in there against a guy who has a vulnerable chin. So Tavares, who's historically been very tough, I mean, sometimes the lights go out, but there's no quitting him. I think he's going to give himself a fighting chance to touch that button. And that'll be my play. Brad Tavares via knockout, but the pick is Gregory Rodriguez via knockout, which is money line is minus 245. I don't know what those props are going to look like. Probably not nearly as juicy as Brad winning by knockout, but I still think it's, if anything, it's his path to victory in this fight. So we'll see what happens. Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers. My pick for this fight is going to be Michael Johnson. I think he's a better fighter, more versatile, UFC level, blah, 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 than Darius Flowers. And he is. But Darius Flowers is the more dangerous guy. He always gives himself a fighting chance. Guy really brings it with blitzes of offense. And I think he's going to give himself a fighting chance here against Michael Johnson, whose durability is becoming more of an issue. Certainly after last year, it's more of an issue. Johnson's only been knocked out 3 times. Justin Gaethje, who didn't knock him unconscious but beat him up and got beaten up. And then he was knocked out cold by Josh Emmett and Diego Ferreira. 2 fucking right hands from hell that knocked him dead in rounds 2 and 3. Those are excellent fighters. And they were deep into the fight when he got cracked, and Johnson looked good in those fights before that. But again, the chin is the chin, and his has been shut off a few times now where there's a lot more doubt creeping in. But that's pretty much Darius Flowers' only path to victory, is the first round knockout. I mean, he could get a second round knockout or whatever, but at the UFC level, I expect it to be first round knockout or bust for Darius Flowers. He's a very limited fighter, even though he's started off as an amateur, getting half his wins by armbar. But as a professional MMA fighter, only 1 win comes by submission, and it's a verbal submission due to strikes. So it just hasn't been in his DNA dealing with better professional fighters. And I don't expect it to be there against Michael Johnson, his grappling or anything, even though that's Michael Johnson's biggest weakness as well. I think Darius Flowers wins. If he wins this fight, it is him hurting Michael Johnson and roughing him up early. Now, I'm sure he's got the power to rough people up later, Darius Flowers, but I don't think it's going to be the case at the UFC level. He's going to be facing guys that are just better, and they're going to suck some of the life out of him, and that's been part of the problem with Darius Flowers. He's got 6 losses, 1 via knockout, 5 via submission, and cardio's been responsible for quite a few of them. Got tapped by this guillotine, I think, from this guy Ryan Laninger or whatever. His cardio totally failed him there. His 1 TKO loss to Bobby Volker, former UFC fighter, that was largely due to his cardio. I mean, that was a big cardio failure for him, and he was doing very well in that fight. And here again, he's fighting a much higher level of competition, and I don't expect him to be running well in rounds 2 and 3. I think against anybody who's remotely competent and a comfortable UFC fighter with a great gas tank like Michael Johnson, he's going to fall off. So my pick is Michael Johnson to win. I think he outlasts and survives the onslaught of Darius Flowers. And it'd be awesome if Michael Johnson was able to take him down or really mix shit up and try to take away that danger without having to go through it. But I still think he goes through it, and I think he gets Darius Flowers out of there down the stretch, rounds 2 or 3. I'd be very surprised if Darius Flowers went the distance in a winning or losing effort at the UFC. But my point is, if Michael Johnson wins, I would go with TKO first, even though he's only been TKO'd once, Darius Flowers. But if those submission props open up at plus 6,000 or whatever, might be worth even a few sprinkles there, because it's been Darius Flowers' biggest liability. Again, despite having something going on offensively in the jiu-jitsu realm as an amateur, as a pro, it's been dog shit, and it's just been avoid the ground game at all costs, generally. He's taken some fights to the ground, had success and whatever, but my point is submission is on the table, even for Michael Johnson here. So the pick is Michael Johnson winning by TKO in round 2, and the bets will be Michael Johnson winning via finish in rounds 2 and 3, and Darius Flowers winning via knockout in round 1. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and oh yeah, I did it again. There's another fight. I'm just getting used to this. And the last fight of this disastrous fucking video is Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosyan. 1. I say that because I've broken this fight down before. And my pick the first time around was Rodolfo Vieira. And he was my bet as well. This time around, he's still my pick, but he's not my bet because I'm staying the fuck away from this one. I regretted putting money on Rodolfo Vieira the first time around. And now, even though the odds are slightly worse or whatever, it doesn't even matter. I'm just staying away from it because I don't have a lot of trust in either guy. I think Armen Petrosyan, with his style, is somebody who could exploit the cardio of Rodolfo Vieira in a kickboxing bout in a way that others couldn't, certainly not somebody like Chris Curtis. And I think Rodolfo Vieira is that next level grappler, certainly, that could exploit Armen Petrosyan on the ground in a way that even somebody like Gregory Rodriguez couldn't, and whoever else. Caio Bahayo. I think, Rodolfo Vieira is obviously that next level danger. And I think if he does win, which I do expect him to win, it's going to be via submission. Submission in the first half of the fight for Rodolfo Vieira, TKO for Armen Petrosyan in the second half of the fight. That's how I see this one going. And of course, I'm aware each guy has lost via his own strength. Petrosyan was knocked out on the regional scene by this guy Hassan or something, but it was a legit one punch against the cage. And Rodolfo Vieira was tapped out by Anthony Fluffy Hernandez in round 2. Now, that was a total cardio failure, more due to cardio than submission defense. But even if the cardio fails him here in this one, I don't think that is even in the realm of possibility. Petrosyan getting a submission. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is a very, very good submission artist in the first place. But Rodolfo Vieira knocking out Petrosyan, I suppose that's possible. Rodolfo Vieira has proven to be a competent striker, although limited, but he is not limited physically because he is built like the fucking Hulk. And it looks like the Hulk might hit hard. So I wouldn't be surprised there. But again, in general, submission in the first half of the fight for Rodolfo, TKO for in the second half of the fight for Armen Petrosyan. And if those odds present themselves as anything juicy, I will be playing them. And typically the longer odds are juicier, rounds 2 and 3. So I'm interested in seeing what Petrosyan's TKO lines look like, just for sprinkles. And of course, I guess Rodolfo Vieira's submission lines. But the pick with a gun to my head is it goes Rodolfo Vieira's way. I think he's got a little bit more going on, and he's going to be able to take this fight into his world and make it happen. And that is it for this video, the main card video, if I did this shit right. So now you can like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my prelim video, which should be right around the corner.